Mayuri Kurotsuchi, 12th Division Captain and certified mad scientist, cackles as his creepy baby-headed Ashisogi Jizo munches down on Sternritter C, Pernida, and its clones. But his smug vibe doesn't last long. Ashisogi Jizo starts bulging and groaning before bam, it pukes its guts out and explodes everywhere. From the mess, a giant Quincy arrow blasts toward Mayuri, who barely dodges as it takes out a tower. Pernida emerges, laughing and mocking Mayuri, saying, "I can kill you, you know. I'm a Quincy." Mayuri grins back unfazed, because of course he knew that. Mayuri taunts Pernida, calling it the Soul King's left arm and questioning its Quincy pride. Pernida fires back, literally and verbally, with arrows everywhere and nerves attached to each one. One arrow hits Mayuri's arm, so he blows it off, because why not? But Pernida's nerves control the arrow, sending it back at him like a heat-seeking missile. Just as it's about to strike, Nemu, Mayuri's loyal lieutenant, swoops in, grabs the arrow, chops off her own arm, and falls to the ground. Pernida's nerves creep closer, but Mayuri pulls her to safety while scolding her for acting without orders. Nemu defends her decision, saying she thought Mayuri needed help. Mayuri, ever the perfectionist, lectures her about not learning things on her own. Then he gets oddly sentimental, calling her by her full name, Nanago Nemuri, and reflecting on how far she's come since Ichigo and the gang first showed up. But don't get it twisted. He's still annoyed because creating the next her is going to be a huge hassle. Nemu tells Mayuri she doesn't fully understand, which ticks him off. He yells at her not to act on her own judgment since she can only die when he says so. Nemu accepts this, flashing back to the first time Mayuri called her number 7, which she adored. Moments later, she hands him a Hojikuzai, something she secretly grabbed because she noticed he forgot it. Mayuri uses it to regrow his missing arm, realizing she caught his mistake. Then, Nemu takes it back and regrows her own arm, explaining how she noticed Mayuri skipped his usual pre-battle prep. Mayuri calls her creepy for her attention to detail, but it's clear he's impressed. Meanwhile, Pernida and its clones start firing arrows like crazy. Mayuri leaps into action, using his rocket shoes to dodge the barrage while planning his next move. As Mayuri zips around, he tells Nemu he's releasing a super-concentrated anesthetic to neutralize the nerves in Pernida's arrows. It's risky, even affecting him a little, but it's worth it. Nemu, already on the move, is tasked with injecting his special nerve-freezing agent into one of the nullified arrows. Mayuri excitedly explains how it works. It freezes nerves and locks organs in place. He's way too into it, but Nemu just rolls with it. Mayuri reminds her that this will stop Pernida by coagulating its blood, and she successfully injects the agent. One of Pernida's clones freezes up, and it looks like they've won, until another clone chops off its thumb to stop the spread. To Mayuri's shock, the clone starts talking like Kenpachi Zaraki. Realizing Pernida evolves by absorbing data through its nerves, Mayuri panics. If it's on Kenpachi's level now, Nemu is in serious danger. He quickly orders her to fall back. Pernida sheds its purple skin like it's nothing, breaking through Mayuri's nerve-freezing agent. Mayuri realizes it's the layered skin trick from his modified Ashisogi Jizo. Pernida looms over him, while Nemu, watching from the ground, looks worried. Flashback. A young Nemu tells Akon that Mayuri won't call her by her name. Akon's confused, saying, "But, your name is Nemu." She reminds him her full name is Nanago Nemuri. Meanwhile, back in the Shinigami research lab, Nico Kuna freaks out when some old vials with tiny flesh clumps start moving. Akon explains their failed experiments from the Artificial Soul Project, the first attempts at creating Nemu. Turns out the first few versions were complete failures. No brains, short lifespans, and even a fetus at one point. But then came her, the 7th iteration, Nemu, who survived past 2 years, making Mayuri proud for once. Back to the fight. Nemu suddenly launches herself at Mayuri, smashing through the ground with incredible power. Another flashback. Akon recalls Mayuri's dream of creating an artificial Shinigami, a sarcastic dream he named Nemuri, because who dreams while awake? But deep down, it's clear Mayuri has a soft spot for Nemu. Akon even tells young Nemu she's Mayuri's greatest creation, something she'd eventually figure out. In the present, Nemu saves the day by ripping through Pernida, leaving a massive hole in its hand. Mayuri, shocked, demands to know where she got such power. Nemu calmly reveals, "It's the power you gave me as the body of a Shinigami." Nemu cranks her power just under the breaking point, telling Mayuri she can keep going for 400 seconds. But Mayuri flips out, not because of the strain, but because she didn't wait for his orders. Nemu calmly says it's her duty to protect him. Mayuri snaps back that her mission is to grow, but Nemu fires back that protecting him is her growth. She sets him on a rooftop, leaving Mayuri stunned as he wonders when she got so sassy. As Nemu charges toward Pernida's last clone, she burns 6% of her soul to fire a golden blast, Gikon Jirinju. It punches through the clone, destroying buildings and ripping it apart. Falling through the air, Nemu glances at Mayuri, who watches her in awe. But then, disaster. The clone's pieces sprout eyes and nerves that latch onto Nemu, making her body swell before she explodes in a horrifying spray of blood. Mayuri stands frozen, her severed hand spinning in the air as the clone begins reforming. Suddenly, a hallucination of Sailaporo appears, mocking Mayuri's shock. Grief? Despair? You? Sailaporo taunts. He reminds Mayuri of his own words, perfection is meaningless, and scientists should celebrate failure. Wasn't Nemu just proof of that? Or was she perfect in Mayuri's eyes? Sailaporo keeps digging at Mayuri's pride, laughing at his perfect creation being destroyed. But Mayuri isn't having it. He crushes the hallucination, admitting it was right but calling the whole thing comical. Just then, the clone lunges back, now aiming to devour Nemu's remains. Mayuri, ever the mad genius, lets it snack until it tries to take her brain. That's when Mayuri steps in, retrieving Nemu's brain while shocking the clone into retreat. Numb yet? He sneers, crackling with electricity. Mayuri orders the clone to keep eating Nemu, explaining that it'll die otherwise. Turns out, Nemu's pituitary gland had a special organ that forces cells to grow way past their limit. Without Nemu's brain to control it, though, the clone's body goes wild. Its flesh starts ballooning uncontrollably until, boom, it explodes, painting the battlefield with its guts. Gross. As Mayuri walks off with Nemu's brain, he suddenly collapses. Turns out, one of the clone's nerves managed to wreck his legs. He mutters something about being no better than Kenpachi, just as Ikaku and Yumichika show up. Mayuri roasts them for sticking around, but gives them props for not interfering earlier. The two carry him to some hidden preservation pods, where Hitsugaya and Rangiku are now fully cured of their zombification. Mayuri casually admits he shaved years off their lives, but shrugs it off since, hey, they're alive now. Hitsugaya thanks him before leaving with Rangiku, much to Mayuri's annoyance. Finally, Mayuri has Ikaku and Yumichika stuff him into a pod, saving the other one for Kenpachi. After a dramatic farewell, they run off, thanking Mayuri again. Disgusted by all the gratitude, Mayuri dismisses it, focusing instead on his masterpiece, Nemu's evolving soul. Holding her brain like a trophy, he smirks, basking in the glory of outdoing Kisuke Urahara. Mayuri watches the regenerative fluid fill the pod and grins, thinking about showing Urahara how much distance there is between them. He imagines Nemu floating beside him. Meanwhile, in Silburn, Liltado and Giselle are surprised to see Yuhabaha's city, the Wandenreich, move. They're soon surrounded by Soldat, but Liltado calls it a warm welcome. Giselle summons the Bambis, Bambietta, Meninas, and Candice, who all land ready for action. Meninas punches through Soldat, Candice electrocutes them, and Liltado devours a bunch. But the Soldat keep getting back up with dark liquid covering their heads, unnerving everyone. Elsewhere, Hashwalth is curious why Oryu is at Ein's Ast and orders his Soldat to follow. But before they can, Baz B shoots them all from behind, smirking and asking if Hashwalth's really that bothered by Oryu. Hashwalth's confused, but Baz B just grins and says he should be asking how he's still alive. And that's it for this episode. Find out what happens next in this all-out battle in the next video. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next episodes, and subscribe for more videos.